From goblins to elves, from gamers to balloons, there are over 300 creature types currently in Magic the Gathering. So many so that you can go whole sets, years, decades even, without seeing a creature type get used. Take a look at Aether Drift, a set based on 3 separate planes, one of which is the plane formerly known as Kaladesh. Avishkar was originally home to many diverse creature types when we first saw it, 3 of which are almost completely absent from Aether Drift. The Vidalcan received 2 cards. They're known for tech, which would have made sense here, but you know what, that's okay. We can at least get them on other planes sometimes. There was only one Aetherborn, a creature type exclusive to the plane of Avishkar, and built on living fast and dying young. And they were completely absent from a set based around driving fast and dangerously. And then there were 0 dwarves, a creature type in original Kaladesh that was highly involved with artificy and piloting. Both these last 2 creature types would have absolutely been perfect in the set, and there was 1 card between them. Something that's become more apparent in a bunch of the more recent return sets is Magic just often doesn't include returning creature types. Hi, I'm Harrison, I run these here parts, and here are 4 creature types they'll never use again in Magic. Before I really get into this list, I wanted to hand out some honorable mentions. The first honorable mention is to the creature types that have been exclusively used in Universe Beyond products so far. With the way all of that works, we might be lucky just to see reprints of already existing cards, let alone newer ones reprising the creature type. I'm not going to be talking about them in this video because there are about 10 of them that exist so far, and there are definitely more on the horizon. Another honorable mention goes out to the whole bunch of creature types that have received 1 card and haven't been touched since. Magic has a bit of an annoying habit with doing this every now and then. Most recently we just added Seal to the game with only 1 card. It'll join the likes of Walrus, Snail, and a bunch of others who Magic thought of enough to do once but never came back to. Alright, with that in place, the first creature type is Surrakar. Hailing from Zendikar, there are 4 Surrakar cards in the game. They're found exclusively in black and blue. All 4 date back to the original Zendikar block. In the game, they don't have too unique of an identity. They're just blue and black doing what blue and black does. 1 draws a card upon hitting someone, 1 bounces a tapped creature, 1 gets Intimidate when you trigger landfall, and the other one, that was lucky enough to be rare, charges up when you play instants and sorceries, and draws that many cards when you hit someone. If there was going to be a connecting identity, it'd have to be hitting people and getting cards. In the lore, they're kinda like lizard fish people, except they're not quite lizards, they're not quite fish, and they're not quite people. These lumbering beasts are best recognized by their gray skin, webbed hands and feet, and tusk-like appendages that hang off of their face. In the lore, not much is really known about them. Magic didn't really spend too much time talking about them as there were much bigger problems on Zendikar at the time. Much bigger problems. Many inhabitants of Zendikar would consider Surrakar ferocious creatures, but it's debated whether they are more monster or man. Some believe these creatures are savage monsters, a more advanced beast, while others believe these humanoids do have some intelligence and a form of culture that isn't clear to the outside observer. What is clear is that at the very least, some of them do know how to wield magic, and others do know how to wield and possibly craft weapons. Each of their 4 cards was printed in original Zendikar block in 2009 and 2010. We've since been back to Zendikar in the form of Battle for Zendikar in 2015, and its sister set Oath of the Gatewatch in 2016, as well as Zendikar Rising in 2020. None of these sets have a Surrakar. And there might be a reason why. It isn't exactly explained in the lore, but there is a fan theory. The Surrakar thrived in a swampy, hilly area on the continent of Balaged. Balaged was practically ground zero for the Eldrazi. A continent that was once known for lush greenery and formidable beasts was absolutely annihilated. So the fan theory is that the Surrakar have gone extinct as a result of the Eldrazi invasion. It's an interesting theory for sure, and it'll probably have to be the only explanation we really have for why we'll never see this creature type again. Next up is Performer. Performer is an occupational creature type that has so far exclusively been used in Unfinity, Magic's 4th comedy set, and while the set has a lot of valid criticism, I enjoyed the silliness it had to offer. These sets are intentionally made to be a little goofy, so when they made Unfinity, it's about a circus, carnival, amusement park set in space. It's not like these cards were going to be legal anywhere. Oh no. A large part of this set was based around circus performers, so it's very fitting that Magic would want to add an occupational creature type to the game to further support that theme. There are 35 cards. It's spread really well amongst the colors, but blue and green are more represented than the others. And they all fit into the typical archetypes of attractions, tickets, and stickers, and what the unsets do best of just really bizarre cards. But then there's a problem. Outside of the unset, where do you use these? In a game that is focused on one-on-one combat, each set inherently has to be built on some sort of conflict. The cards printed often represent the different sides of a conflict, the weapons they use, the allies they have, and other resources they have acquired. When your set takes place at a circus, you can have performers. When your set takes place in an East Asian inspired world where dragons control the 5 factions of man, you don't get as many opportunities to have performers. The same is true for some of the other creature types that originated in Unfinity. Guest, Employee, and Child are all very limited in their uses. The Jolly Balloon Man helped the creature types Clown and Balloon get cards outside of Unfinity. But what I think separates Performer from the rest of the herd is the creature type Bard, the nail in this coffin. Magic added Bard as a creature type to the game in 2021 with the release of Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, which came out a year before the debut of Performer. Since then, Magic has added more and more creatures to the game with the type Bard. From painters to flutists to crime novelists, Bard has been used to cover a wide variety of artistic types. Magic has used Bard all over the place, and the real one that breaks the Performer's back here is 3-Dog from the Fallout crossover product. If there was going to be any card that had the creature type Performer, it would be the radio DJ himself. And even though Magic sometimes forgets to use the creature type Bard, I'm looking at you, Sizzling Soloist and Acrobatic Cheerleader, Bard definitely takes precedence over the use of Performer. And that's why we'll never see Performer again. Next up is Graveborn, a creature type I'm both willing to bet you've never heard of, and neither has many of Wizards of the Coast R&D. Graveborn are exclusively a token creature type and have only 2 cards that can produce them. The first one was Balduvian Dead from Alliances in 1996. Balduvian Dead is 4 mana for a 2/3 zombie. It has an activated ability where you can pay 2 and a red and exile a creature from your graveyard to create a 3/1 black and red Graveborn token with haste, and then at the end of the turn you exile the token. The Balduvian Dead themselves being a zombie makes it even more bizarre that the Graveborn aren't just zombies. They would then be used again in Cold Snap with Surrakar, Deathkeeper in 2006. Surrakar is a 5-mana 4/3 legendary orc shaman. When another non-token creature you control dies, you get to make a 3/1 black and red Graveborn token with haste. This is where the plot thickens. Or how I've heard someone phrase it recently, this is where the plot curdles. The flavor text on the original Surrakar says Carpulus legend told of an orc so cruel that he burned his own followers in rage, yet so revered that they rose from their pyres to serve him. So the flavor behind Graveborn, at least in this iteration, are zombies. They rise from their graves. They're even amassing in armies to serve a greater lord, which, while not mandatory for zombies in Magic, this is pretty typical behavior. So they may only make up 50% of all Graveborn, but Surrakar was definitely an offhand reference to Balduvian Dead. Balduvian Dead comes from Alliances, which has a bit of an odd story behind it. The long story short, Cold Snap was designed to make Ice Age and Alliances into a trilogy, with it being its third. But since it came out so long after the original 2, it comes across less like a proper third in a trilogy, and more like a special set that's intended as a throwback to the original 2. And I speculate that this is why this creature type even still exists. Mark Rosewater notes that Cold Snap as a set was very rushed, and they were trying to make connections to the original set while also formatting aspects of it to fit into the current design philosophy. So Surrakar, coming in and making specifically Graveborn, was more than likely intended as a reference to Balduvian Dead. I think Graveborn is less of a question of will we ever see them again, and more of a question of why do these even exist? Like seriously. In 2007, Magic the Gathering had the Grand Creature Type Update, which was an event that ended up changing over 1,000 cards in the game. Older Magic had a bunch of creature types that weren't really supported by the mid-2000s, so Magic did the Grand Creature Type Update to clean everything up. Creatures that were previously bandits, thieves, and robbers were all refined into being rogues. We had cards like Gaia's Avenger, who officially was the creature type Gaia's Avenger, but was changed into a Treefolk. So with this Grand Creature Type update, they fixed any inconsistencies and matched older Magic cards to more current design. And somehow, Graveborn slipped through. My lead guess is Cold Snap came out in 2006 and the Grand Creature Type update was in 2007, so they didn't want to errata a card that was only a year old at the time, but who knows. My philosophy when it comes to Magic is Magic should only have as many creature types as it needs, and following that logic, Graveborn should just be zombies. But people at R&D might believe that Graveborn existing is totally warranted. Either way, we haven't seen it in almost 20 years, so it's probably safe to say that we're never going to see it again. The final creature type I want to talk about was Mystic. Mystic was first printed all the way back in Portal 3 Kingdoms in 1999, and this is the only one I heavily believe that Magic has either just forgotten about or has just given up on. There are 7 Mystics in Magic, and they're exclusively in green and white. Like I said earlier, there were some printed in Portal 3 Kingdoms. The first one has hexproof and the second one has reverse horsemanship. What a niche, weird little card. We also got 5 new ones in Odyssey in 2001, and because they're all from the same set, they all share a very similar design space, which is caring about Threshold. Threshold, for those of you who don't know at home, is an ability word that works just as a reminder to tell you that if you ever have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, this card does something cool. It's kind of surprising the creature type Mystic never caught on. We got 7 in the span of 3 years and haven't seen it since. The idea and fundamental parts of being a Mystic work really well within Magic and other fantasy games. So why didn't Mystic catch on? The Mystics in the lore of the game are characterized as people who channel magic with their faith, but rather than focusing on religion, they focus on meditation. They also have a deep connection to the spirits of their ancestors. This is why a bunch of them have Threshold. The Ludo narrative is you having a bunch of stuff in your graveyard is the equivalent of them having a connection to their dead relatives. But besides the connection to the ancestors, does this sound familiar? Mystics are just basically monks and a little bit of clerics. If Magic was going to release a new creature that was a religious figure, it'd be a cleric. If that creature was focusing on meditation, it'd be a monk. And this explanation works with the timelines between the creature types. Clerics have always existed and have around 600 cards in the game, so that was always going to be a consistent wall to compete with. But monks, on the other hand, were almost late bloomers in terms of receiving support. There are over 100 monks in the game now, but at the time when Mystics were seeing print, there were only 5 monks in the game. Then we visited Kamigawa and got a bunch, and then we get an occasional one here and there, but then we eventually visited Tarkir and got a ton. Currently in Magic, about 30% of all monks come from Tarkir, and that number doesn't even include monks printed after Dragons of Tarkir that are still canonically from the plane. And with a new Tarkir set and the Avatar The Last Airbender set coming soon, we're only getting more. So Mystics lost the fight to monks. That's pretty much the beginning and the end of why Mystics don't have any more cards. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention the absolute disrespect Magic has towards Mystics now. There are 36 cards in Magic that have Mystic in the name, but are not Mystics. Elvish Mystic is an Elf Druid. Frilled Mystic is an Elf Wizard Lizard. Starfield Mystic is a Human Cleric. Stoneforge Mystic, Core Artificer. Ret Tomb Mystic, a card from Aetherdrift. Zombie Bird Wizard. Magic has not only killed the Mystic creature type, but is dancing on its grave. But wait, it gets worse. Treefolk Mystic and Rootwater Mystic both predate the creature type Mystic, and Magic never thought it was worthwhile to go back and errata them to be Mystics themselves. Mystic as a creature type was dead on arrival. So Surrakar, Performer, Graveborn, and Mystic. Those are your 4 creature types that they're never going to bring back. If you enjoyed this video and you want to hear me blabber on some more about Magic the Gathering, YouTube thinks you'd really like this video. What's your favorite super niche creature type? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to bolt your birds.